Is fear getting stronger? Lock in.
Over the last
images may be spooky. Ooh.
500 million years, what started as a startle reflex transformed into emotion and now shapes the structure of policy itself. It's incredibly contagious, historically been weaponized as punishment, and even heritable under the right conditions.
Fear can be inherited through sperm? Huh? Lab mice trained to fear a particular smell can transfer that impulse to unborn sons and grandsons. So if you're afraid of something, your offspring are also likely to be afraid of it. Well, that's in mice.
But after a millennium of influencing, well, everything, fear seems to be less pervasive than we once thought. In fact, fear is so modifiable that not only are more people seeking it out as a form of entertainment, but in a lab, fear can be erased far easier.
I don't know. I think people seek horror movies for entertainment to feel alive. Or distract you from other emotions in life. Genuinely. I think horror movies is like one of the greatest genres as a means of like forgetting. Because you get so zoned into a horror film. Like other movies, if you're watching like a comedy or, you know, like a drama, romance, you kind of zone out. You go do other shit. You're not really in the film. When you watch a horror film, you're locked in to that for like the 2 hours that it's on. So I get that.
Than it's learned. Just like everything else, eventually humanity found a way to conquer it. And conquer it, we did. Except that's completely false.
Yeah, I feel like fear is so much more worse than anything else. I feel like anxiety and the general fear of like the future and impending doom is more than ever.
As of 2019, anxiety disorders have shot up by 55%, while new phobias pop up every other year.
Okay, new phobias popping up every other year, though. I don't think there's actually new phobias. I think they just have names. Is that fair to say? Like, arachnophobia is something that I believe has probably always existed. People have always been afraid of spiders. Like, but it's just nobody had a term for being afraid of fucking spiders until that popped up.
Pop up every other year, most of which seem irrational or harmless, yet are still potent enough to shape entire generations. Have we really found a way to conquer fear, or has it just mutated into different forms? Well, in a cycle as old as our species itself, no matter how many fears we overcome, twice as many emerge just as quickly to take their place.
Oh, no, that is like a new phobia. That's fair. That's fair. New shit being developed, like the fear of AI or like technology, that's something that is new. But what is a new phobia that people have that they didn't have 10 years ago?
Changing in form as humanity moved from real threats to abstract ones. Evolving.
Yeah, I think fear today, chat, would you guys say fear today is worse or better than it was in like caveman times? It's a it's a deep fear, bro. That's the difference. I think like caveman times, you were afraid of dying. You were afraid of, and people are still afraid of dying today, obviously. But caveman times, it was like, holy shit, this bear's gonna kill me. This shark's gonna kill me. This thing's gonna kill me. Now it's like the impending doom that nuclear warfare might wipe the human race off the planet, and humanity as a whole and life as we know it may cease to exist because of 4 men that have really tied knots of narcissism within their own personality, and they refuse to see the other person's side or even for a moment, you know, put their fucking thoughts aside for the betterment of humanity. It's like a much more complex fear that people have today. You're afraid of death, yes, but you're also afraid of like not having, like, it's like afraid of death because you can't find food in caveman times, afraid of death because something's gonna maul you, versus now like war, politics, and all these other things that could potentially hurt, harm, or hinder you. There's a lot more to be afraid of now.
To abstract ones, evolving with us as fear moved from biology into culture, and then fiction, science, finance, technology, space exploration, and every other layer of human existence. It is possibly the one thing we may never be able to control. With an influence so deep, it's unsettling to imagine what control over fear would even look like. But despite everything I just said, there's a catch. We have found a way to dull fear's effects, and yet it's everywhere, spreading wider than ever before. is
Wait, this is how, what, afraid you are of things? That really does make sense when you're like 95, you're just no longer afraid of shit. Like when you're at that age, bro, I feel like it's just, dude, peak fears 40 to 44. When you're at 95, though, I feel like it's like, I'm going to die at any moment. Why would I be afraid of anything? Anything could kill me. I might die from breathing right now.
fear getting stronger? If fear is getting stronger, how would we even know? One way is to look at individuals, using their heart rate and their flinches, but that's too one-dimensional and doesn't account for the diversity in fear. Another way would be to track different fears across society, but that's too static and only tells us where fear is right now. So a better method would be
This is a prevalence. What is this? A graph of prevalence of fear? Damn, Iceland's like the least fearful country. Is this like threat of global fear? I don't understand what this graph is even representing. There's no shot this is true.
So a better method would be to start from the beginning, mapping as many different fears as we can to a series of levels, the deepest being
Biology!
At the biological level, we have the most primitive fears, the oldest of which is the acoustic startle reflex, which isn't technically a fear, but is the foundation of every other fear. Its only purpose is survival, by forcing a reaction to
Yeah, you can't control it either. It's like it's fully hardwired into your body. A loud noise is going to make you jump and have your head snap.
any sudden noise. Because of that, it's an all or nothing response.
It's not, I wouldn't even say, is a loud sound fear or more awareness? I feel like that's how low level it is. Like, it's not even really scared. Like, you're not scared. It's just like a flinch reflex. No, but you do get an adrenaline rush. Like, if you were walking through the woods and there was like a really loud noise, you would probably get scared as shit.
Hardwired into the brainstem and universal across all mammals. However, while this does mean that it can't scale in strength, it doesn't mean that it can't scale in sensitivity. And when paired with higher brain regions, this reflex could be shaped by perception, which is where the second fear in this level comes from, heights. The fear of heights is also hardwired, so much so that
Really? The fear of heights is hardwired. Do you think that if you never taught a kid anything and they grew up, they would understand the idea that they'll fall to their death if they like fell off a tree? Yeah, like the fear of heights everyone has. It's just how afraid you are of heights. There are certain people with like dumbed down levels of that receptor in their brain. Like, who's that one famous rock climber that scaled like the wall of a mountain with no like safety nets? Rock climber with no fear. What's his name, bro? Alex Honnold. Alex Honnold actually has like a fucked up brain and isn't afraid of heights as much as the normal person. This is him free climbing a mountain. If he fell here, he would die. He has no harness. I don't think anyone could do this in my chat. I don't think anyone I think like out of 8 billion people, there's probably like 10,000 people that could fucking do this. He did die. Nah, Alex Honnold didn't die. Alex Honnold's 40. He's alive. But he's scaled crazy mountains with no fucking harnesses. Nothing.
even turtles have it. But in humans, it's even more apparent, as in infants, the illusion of a drop-off causes them to pause and refuse to cross, which marks the beginning of what characterizes real fear. It's anticipatory. While the fear of heights is very narrow, recognizing cues in the environment came with
But do you think that we have a fear of heights because your brain recognizes the potentiality of death from that? Like, if you were never taught anything, you would understand. Like, animals would understand, if I fall from this, I'll die.
its own set of advantages. Chief among them was
How? How does it know that?
anticipating threats instead of just reacting to them. And while this was undeniably beneficial, it did have one major drawback. Now, fear was something that lingered. An environment full of information that's very helpful. It allowed us to predict, anticipate, and respond preemptively. But strip away
Yeah, anxiety really does suck because it's something that is like a genetic thing we've inherited to survive that isn't needed in everyday life for anxiety-based things. Like, I mean, maybe in some instances where if you're anxious about losing a job because you're worried about not being able to have food because that's related to the idea of dying. But a lot of anxiety people have isn't tied to the fear of death, but that's where you get it. So it's just like you feel like you're going to die.
Weigh that information, and what once kept you safe starts to work against you. Or in other words, darkness, the last fear in this level. What's interesting about darkness, to me, is that it isn't the dark that makes things unsettling.
It's the fear of the unknown.
In fact, many prey animals are nocturnal precisely because of the darkness. What makes the darkness unsettling is what it hides, a function of the fact that we're diurnal. Humans are overwhelmingly daylight dependent, so much so that the cones in our eyes require bright light to function well. At night, there is no bright light, so in response, we use another type of cell located in the periphery of the retina called rods. And while they're great at detecting motion, they are terrible at detecting detail, which leaves us in a position where we can't pick up on color, can't pick up on sharpness, but are hypersensitive to the jittery shapes at the edge of our vision. By itself, this isn't too bad, but imagine living 300,000 years ago, where real-life monsters—
Holy shit! Holy shit! Imagine being a caveman walking through the woods in the middle of the night, no torch. Like, fire exists, but you don't have portable fire. It's just pitch black. The moon's not out, so you don't get the reflection of the sun on the moon. It's just dark.
much stronger than—
But at that point, I feel like you don't like the type of animals we are. You get shit done during the day and you like camp at night because you're scared, right? Well, and you need to sleep, but it's a mixture. That's how we got here. Yeah. But I'm saying like, you don't really move at night as a human. Like you're not traveling during the night.
And you or I were actively hunting humans. Suddenly, every rustle could be a predator, every shadow a threat, which gets to the heart of what makes the darkness terrifying. You can never be certain, and when your main survival strategy is anticipating threats, this same system is now working in overdrive, constantly guessing off of very limited information what's dangerous and what's not.
And that's why people think they see things in the dark that they don't, because their brain's working hyperactively. And so they have to interpret things that they believe may be threats, but in reality aren't. And that's one of the reasons I don't know if I do believe in ghosts or don't. I'm kind of in a coin toss there still. Because if you tell me that I'm going into a haunted house and I'm genetically hardwired to already be anxious about being in the dark, and now you're kind of throwing in level 3 or 4, levels of fear at me, like supernatural fears, and now I'm trying to perceive that, I'm going to start thinking that I'm seeing ghosts. I'm going to start thinking that I'm seeing demons.
Over generations, those who guess danger more often survive longer, and as a result, changed fear forever. Now, it persists, it can spread, but most importantly, it thrives under ambiguity. And the dangerous thing about ambiguity is, it's everywhere.
Social.
Level 2 is where fears become human, influenced by our interactions with other people. And what I find surprising about that is, nothing illustrates this better than a 500 million year old reflex rooted in contamination cues.
Yawning? Oh, coughing. I love talking about yawning. If I yawned right now, a lot of you guys would yawn because your brain is hardwired to be on like the same, what is it, like, not sleep schedule, but humans are like hardwired to be on the same rhythm. And so if you yawn, wait, why if I yawn, do other people yawn? Social mirroring is a subconscious behavior believed to be related to your brain's mirror neurons. It's an empathetic behavior that strengthens social bonds and increases group behavior and alertness in transitional times. So it's literally a survivability thing to yawn when other people yawn. I just yawned. Yeah, talking about yawning can make you yawn, or thinking about yawning.
Or, in other words, the fear of—
I feel it building. It's like right back here. I'm like, I could yawn right now. Hold up. That's so fucking weird.
Pathogens, which actually comes from the disgust system, a sister of fear, but didn't fully mature until humans started living in groups. When we did, working together changed everything, but perhaps most quietly by opening a new dimension to fear, internal threats, which are invisible to the naked eye but just as deadly as anything else. So while darkness made us afraid of what might be out there, pathogens took that same ambiguity and turned it inside, which is...
Yeah, but did humans know? Didn't we not know that disease was contaminated through coughing and other, like, life forms? Maybe you knew to stay away from those people, but I don't think we fully understood that until, like, well into the human history.
Way worse, because unlike
like, plague doctors used to think that fucking disease was spread through smell.
predators, pathogens don't announce themselves. They're delayed in onset, silent, and most dangerously, spread in accordance with the very thing that made humans successful, the size of our groups. And there's some terrifying examples of this across history. The Black Death, in just a few years, killed roughly 50% of Europe's population. The Justinian plague of Constantinople killed...
Which is wild. Like, did they do... I love learning about the Black Plague, but I feel like you glance over it so fast in school history class that I kind of want to, like, watch a whole documentary on it. Because did they do everyday things in that time? Like, you know how scary it would have been to be alive during the Black Plague? Knowing that 1 in 2 people would die. Not even 1 in 2 people would get it. One in 2 people would die from the Black Plague in that time span. Like, half of Europe died. So there were just dead bodies everywhere. You still had to fucking farm food and you know, survive. But I feel like a lot of time had to have just been spent, like, hunkered in your home out of just straight up fear.
So many people that bodies had to be piled in the streets or dumped into the ocean. But the most interesting thing, to me, is the after effects. The fear of pathogens can't possibly just be chalked up to the fact that they're lethal, because at a deeper level, they're transformative. Every pandemic in the history of humanity created immense changes that spread much farther than the death toll. They changed our psychology, our behavior, who we eat with or who we trust. They changed the economy.
I don't know. I mean, I'm not really that afraid of getting casually sick. It depends on the sickness. Like, if somebody told me they had COVID, I'd be like, okay, I'm not hanging out with you. Or like the stomach virus or the flu, strep throat. But if somebody was like, I have a cold, I wouldn't care. You know? I would still be like, just don't cough on me. It depends what type of illness it was. COVID was like the first time, bro. Y'all remember? Did y'all go to the grocery store during COVID? That shit was like hazmat suit central, bro. People were showing up. You were like sidestepping away from people. Like, you didn't want to even be within a 10-foot radius of someone. It was that scary. Like, the thought of getting COVID was like death. Not like, I wasn't, in my brain, I remember not being, I knew I wasn't going to die, but I was like, oh, getting COVID would be really bad.
It's the level of superstition and the amount of control. In fact, in Rome's case, the Justinian plague is thought to be one of the leading theories behind why its empire collapsed. All of these are a function of pathogens targeting the places that should be the safest. Us. Except, they were never the safest, were they? Because you know what's more terrifying than something that's invisible? Something that can hide its intentions, and worse, is just as clever as you are. The craziest thing I found when I was trying to map these different fears is this: the International Affective Picture System, which is a...
Bro, it really is nuts that the scariest thing is, like, in a survivability scenario, or like when you watch apocalypse films. What's the scariest thing about The Walking Dead? Not the zombies. It's the other fucking people that are trying to kill you. It's not the fucking, you know, the animals that are, because you're a human. You're above, like, we're apex predators in the sense that we weren't originally, but we're smart enough now to where you could build tools and basically kill any animal. So it's just the only thing that's you're afraid of is other people.
But if you look closely, there's one fear that consistently generates more negative emotion than almost anything else. It's not pollution, not disease, and not predators. It's humans. Specifically, angry humans. And it's for good reason. Humans can undoubtedly be more compassionate than anything that has ever existed. However, we also have that same capacity towards violence. And this capacity isn't exactly a recent phenomenon. 10,000 years ago, a group of hunter-gatherers were, for lack of a better word, massacred, and it wasn't exactly merciful. In a sample of Paleolithic fossils...
Wait, what? Like some random human in a group of hunter-gatherers killed all his people?
A group of hunter-gatherers were, for lack of a better word, massacred, and it wasn't exactly merciful. In a sample of Paleolithic fossils, 26% had some form of cranial trauma, most of which were male. And in 2 modern hunter-gatherer societies...
Yeah, man. That's crazy to think about. Like, people get in, like, school fights now and street fights, but, like, pre-society times, if you lived... Because we weren't a type of animal where it was, like, there's one guy and a bunch of women, and, like, they only mate with one... Like, everybody mated with other people, right? Like, it wasn't like the apex male got all the women. Maybe there were certain groups of people like that, but... The amount of times you would probably just get in almost death level fist fights with other men in your group is crazy. To think that, like, you're just casually chilling with, like, the 8 people in your pack, and one day some guy, you get upset, like, arguing over food distribution or something. Not even by language. You just start fucking beating the shit out of each other till somebody fucking gives up or dies.
Roughly 40% of all deaths come from other humans.
What? 40% of...
And in 2 modern hunter-gatherer societies, roughly 40% of all deaths come from other humans.
In 40% of 2 hunter-gatherer societies, a third to a half of all deaths in these societies were due to human violence. So they weren't even dying to the shit around them. They weren't dying to starvation or disease. They were just fucking killing each other.
Regardless of the conditions, humans can...
I don't want to say that makes me feel better about how shit society is, but, like, people have been doing that since hunter-gatherers. Because I would have presumed that hunter-gatherer societies weren't peaceful, but I would have guessed that they didn't kill each other often. Because they were dealing with outward threats. But it's when you're safe enough that you start fighting each other. Because you do work together if there's a threat. But once that threat's gone, the threat becomes another person. That's why, like, one of the biggest unifying ways to get people on each other's side is war. Because right now, politically, in the United States, everybody hates each other. But if we had a war where where everybody thought it made sense to have a common goal against another enemy, everybody stops bickering at each other for a minute to deal with that. Or like aliens. Like if we all had to fight aliens, we'd come together. Like that's showing that hunter-gatherers were doing well enough to the point where they were just attacking each other because they didn't have to worry about other stuff. Not worry, but to the extent where it wasn't that big of a deal.
Be, and often are, a threat. But humans fighting each other is one thing. What can truly make...
So the solution to world peace is an intergalactic war? No, but I do think it would cause world peace. Momentarily. I think if we would die if we ever had to fight aliens. But I think if aliens ever did threaten threaten Earth, I think all the countries would come together and stop fighting. Because you got to think, if aliens are coming down and attacking Earth, are the current wars that are going on gonna continue happening in the midst of that? No. For a brief moment, everybody's gonna go and pivot their eyes and go, oh, fuck. We have to do that first before we fucking come back to this. Because this doesn't matter anymore because that's gonna kill us. That's more of a big deal than this because this we could deal with later.
Humans terrifying is that they're you. They know what your strengths are, what your weaknesses are, how to best inflict pain, and perhaps worst of all, how to...
Do you guys think it's weird that people dress up as serial killers on Halloween? Not fictional ones. Not Dexter. Real serial killers. I feel like there's a mixture of takes there. And because a lot of people dress up as Jeffrey Dahmer for Halloween. And... I think it's, like, usually looked past because it's like, oh, Jeffrey Dahmer was, like, a known serial killer. Also, a lot of people thought was an attractive man. So it's like, most people don't care. But if you dressed up as John Wayne Gacy, that'd be a different story, you know? If you dressed up as a clown and somebody was like, oh, you're a clown fraud? No, I'm John Wayne Gacy. No, I'm John Wayne. I'm the guy that shoved people under his floorboards. You would probably be like, oh, really? You're going as as John Wayne Gacy. Like, it would probably get some more questions than fucking, Ted Bundy or some shit. What about Dexter? I don't think dressing up as Dexter is bad because Dexter is a fictional person. But if you, like, flat out went as, like, Ed Gein, if you went as Texas Chainsaw Massacre, that is a fictionalized serial killer. So it's different. But if you just go as Ed Gein, that's fucking... Bro, you're dressing up as a guy that used to dig up dead bodies and peel their skin off. Like...
How to best inflict pain, and perhaps worst of all, how to build tools that do it better. Something that, despite being documented in other animals for hunting purposes, hasn't popped up in any other species. Still, to imply
wait, what?
Pain, and perhaps worst of all, how to build tools that do it better. Something that, despite being documented in other animals for hunting purposes, hasn't popped up in any other species. Still, to imply that the fear of angry humans only comes from violence is, in my opinion, false. Because while that's definitely part of it, violence is, at least partially, a product of something deeper.
Violence is from power, because all humans in general seek power in some way or another. Not even in a malicious sense, but your end goal is usually to try and rise up the ranks of whatever system you want to be a part of, whether it be your job, your club, your thing, because competition is built in humans, and competition's end goal is power. And with power comes violence, historically, against other humans.
After I found the affective picture system, the first thing I did is start tearing through mythology. Because, I mean, what are ancient stories if not an artifact of human psychology? And what I found is that violence is quite prevalent, but every time it's mentioned, there's another theme right there with it that I think is even more important: belonging. In the Romulus and Remus story, the brotherly conflict stems from who has the right to belong as the founder of Rome. When arguing about the city walls, Romulus kills Remus, which literally marks the line between who belongs in the city and who doesn't. In the story of Cain and Abel, God accepts Abel's offer but rejects Cain's. Infuriated by this, Cain kills Abel, and for those actions is punished by being banished, or in other words, by not belonging. But while this thread is intimately tied to these stories of violence, it's also everywhere else. In medieval Europe, punishments of shame were literally designed to weaponize this mechanism. In Imperial China, punishment was enforced through the konge, a massive wooden collar that had to be worn in public. In neuroscience, social rejection
You have fear of rejection because part of humans are social creatures, and part of your aspirations is to be accepted by others. And if you're not accepted, you're rejected. There's like no in between. I also think that's how extremist groups spark up. Not even like in the sense of like incel or something like that, where people modernly talk about that, but like extremist groups usually form from other people that have been rejected from current groups, and then form other groups of rejected individuals that have extreme ideologies that try to pinpoint why they didn't belong in the current group that they wanted to be a part of originally.
It's the same brain regions as physical pain, which has also been documented in primates. It's why they groom, thought to be why we blush, part of why fear is socially contagious, and of course, perfectly aligns with everything we know about evolutionary biology. All of these, at least to
I am loving this video,
highlight what the biggest fear of humans towards other humans actually is: the need to belong, which as a category is made up of the fear of rejection, humiliation, disapproval, and looking foolish. I mean, what other explanation could there possibly be for why people fear
public speaking over anything because you don't want to be embarrassed?
Public speaking of all things more than death.
Mind fears.
An interesting experience that exemplifies what level 3 is about is what I like to call place-based anxiety, which has been documented all across the world. Essentially, people, for no apparent reason, experience...
I don't think people's biggest fear is public speaking, though. Like, type 1, if your biggest fear, you would say, is public speaking. I used to be fucking so scared of public speaking. It is so weird that that's a fear. And because I remember I used to be shaking. Freshman year in high school, I would have to give a speech to like 30 people, and I would dead ass be like holding the podium, because if I wasn't holding the podium, I would be like, and I would be dreading it for weeks before. Like how fucking scary that was. And even today, I think it's gotten better because of my job. I'm effectively a public speaker, right? I'm public speaking right now. Not in a crowd, but on a camera, so it makes it easier. Like I've said outwardly, if I had to physically speak in front of 5,000 people, I would be a hell of a lot more nervous. But internet-wise, it's less scary. I think I could do it, though. But if you had asked freshman year me to even give a speech in front of 5 people, I think I would have been mortified. Like, genuinely so scared. I just hated I was so scared of social interaction. But it wasn't that I hated being... I don't think it was that I was introverted. And I don't think a lot of people are truly introverted. Everybody is to a degree. Everybody wants to be alone to a degree. But I think a lot of introverted individuals are introverted not because they actually want to be alone. They do enjoy hanging out with friends. They do enjoy doing things. They don't enjoy areas where they have to constantly meet and interact with people they don't feel comfortable around. That's what they mean by introverted. It's not that they're not extroverted in the sense that they don't want to interact with people. It's that they don't want to interact with random people in large public settings because that's scary. Like if they were able to fast forward through meeting new people, they would be happy to hang out with individuals they know. It's the idea of having to force yourself to meet those people that sucks. Because you probably have friends that you remember dreading initially talking to. Like, not as you get older, it gets easier. But, like, I remember, dude, when I was younger, I'm a freshman in high school. I was like, damn, I don't want to fucking go talk to these people. I was so scared of it. And then those people become your friends, and you enjoy each other's company.
It's a sun wave of dread in one specific location. Sometimes it's...
So just fucking do it, dude. It's your brain. It's your genetics telling you that shit's going to fucking go wrong. If it doesn't work, you don't become friends with that person. Who gives a shit? If it's an awkward interaction, who gives a shit? You're never going to fucking see that person again. And if you do, they're probably more fucking worried about their own life than they are yours.
It's a room in a relative's house. Other times a hallway in an office building. Regardless.
Shit, I was like that until senior year. Bro, I was like that until like 3 years ago. Even when I started social media, I was introverted. Or awkward, at least. Even when I started streaming, bro, I felt weird. It didn't feel natural. Now I just go on stream. And I don't ever feel awkward. I get mad, if anything. Because you guys will piss me off. But it's not like, I don't know. It's not like a scare. And when I am awkward, like there's been times where I've made really dud jokes. And it's been a cringy miss. But I find it funny rather than like, ooh, that sucks. Like the skin of a goose or pee in my bowl. For like Jinxie, like when he said, this is why we clash, like in his brain, he was probably originally going, this would be hard. And it was really lame. And his chat made fun of him. But he wasn't like, it didn't seem like he was embarrassed. He was like, oh shit. And then moved on. And now he leans into it.
Every time they step into it, a sun wave of fear hits them. What's strange is that nothing about the...
Wait, I was rambling for so long. What are we talking about now? Mysterious hum? Oh, scary places is level 3.
All across the world. Essentially, people, for no apparent reason, experience a sun wave of dread in one specific location. Sometimes it's a room in a relative's house, other times a hallway in an office building.
Oh my god. Oh my god. I get like a really eerie feeling of this one room in my grandparents' old house. It had blue walls and this clock that would just go. And there was these Raggedy Ann dolls that were just out. And they were like facing the bed. And so I would sleep. When I would sleep there, I would wake up and it would just be staring at me. It was, and like even now, bro, the thought of that room makes me uncomfortable. Like, I don't think I would be scared, but I would be like, if I had to sleep there in the way that it was when I had been there, years back, I think I would be scared. I think I would actually be like somewhat disturbed.
Regardless, Every time they step into it,
And they had this one firefighter Dalmatian dog that would do a dance when you would press its paw. And I remember I woke up at 3 a.m. and it was just dancing. And I was like 10. And I went like hyperventilating, like thought it was a ghost level creepy. I never pressed it, just danced. I turned it off on the bottom and fucking put it in the closet. I was so scared of it.
sudden wave of fear hits them. What's strange is that nothing about the place seems out of the ordinary. There's no creepy backstory, no hidden threat.
I love graveyards. I think graveyards are not scary. I think they're peaceful. They're quiet. Like a graveyard, I don't hang out at a graveyard, but I do. If I'm at a cemetery, I will look at random graves. I love reading the life of people, their name, when they were alive. Like, dude, when I see like 1883, like I try to think about that person and like who they were. It's cool, if anything. I don't think it's like scary. Sad, yeah, but not scary.
Perfectly fine. And yet, every single time, without fail, the feeling hits out of nowhere. Most people think it comes from low-frequency sound, which our nervous system picks up on and then interprets as a threat. But this kind of fear, the kind that's not dangerous yet feels as though...
Aren't there horror movies that do that? I'm pretty sure there's horror films that have edited in low, like, you can't perceive them, but they're low-frequency hums that are meant to make you, like, just on edge at all times.
It is surprisingly common. Submerged man-made objects, for example, are not something most people will encounter in their lifetime. There's also nothing inherently dangerous about them. But a rusting chain, disappearing into the abyss below, so far you can't...
Oh, no, that's not even... Oh, no, yeah, no. The ocean... I would say a top 3 fear is the deep ocean. Like, if you threw... It could be 2 p.m. on a sunny day in July. The water's not cold. You drive me 10 miles offshore and throw me in the water, there could be no fish around, and I'm immediately like, get me back in the boat because I don't know what's fucking under me. I don't know. Like, that is so scary. Like, when I see videos of people in, like, yachts just jumping into the middle of the ocean, you're on crack. I would have to see the bottom. I would have to see the bottom. If I can't see the bottom, I'm not even like, okay, I don't need to see the bottom, but I at least want to know that the bottom's close. And I remember I used to go to Florida, and the water's murky as hell. And we would, like, jump off a boat into the water, and it was fun as shit. But the entire time, all I'm thinking is there could dead-ass be a shark within 10 feet of me, and I have no idea. No, it's not. Every time I went, the water was murky.
Tell where it ends can
That's why I despise the Jersey Shore. The Jersey Shore water is always like, you could see 1 foot. So when you go out into the water, you're just like in the ocean and you can't see anything. And then your foot touches a horseshoe crab and the day's ruined. And then you're like, all right, I'm now on the beach for the rest of the day. I'm not going in the water anymore.
Instantly send a shiver down your spine. Same thing with buildings that are way too large, spaces that are way too tight, needles, weird patterns, and basically anything else.
I'm not afraid of needles.
There is only one reason.
I don't like looking at them, though. Maybe that is fear. I can get, if you were like, if you showed me a needle and you're like, I need to stab you with this, I'd go, okay, but I would not look. Oh, fuck, I would not look. I would go like this. Because I don't care about the feeling. It's like the pain of it. But a catheter, I don't think that scares me. I think the idea of a catheter is genuinely... I Googled a catheter and it showed me an old man's penis. I'm trying to just see the device. Catheter needle. Yeah, like this. Okay, there we go. An image without a dick in it. That. Like, bro, no. If I was, like, if I'm 70 years old, they're like, all right, that ain't going in my arm. That ain't going in my arm. Hell no. Hell no. That would be, I'd be sitting there like,
reason I can think of for why fears like this can exist, and it's called
Wait, it's a needle? Yeah.
recursion.
Sharp, too.
So far in its evolution, we've seen how fear changed from a physical reaction to an emotional one, largely because as we grew more complex, so did our environments. As our environments grew more complex, so did the types of threats we would face. But when it comes to recursion, the ability to think about thinking, we don't even know how it evolved. Theories range from language being the origin to violence being its precursor.
I think language. I think language is the origin of introspection. Because once you're able to communicate with another person, you can communicate to yourself. And then you're able to question the I, the me, the who, the what, the where, the when. And that's where shit gets real freaky. And that is the deepest. I like that he's going to that. The deepest level of fear is definitely like a philosophical, existential fear. Like, what am I?
All the way to it stemming from how the brain processes things. Regardless, the ability to nest thoughts was possibly more impactful on us than anything ever. Because, well, it's what allows us to create, to plan, to worry about the future and imagine hypotheticals. But as great as that is, it also leaves us vulnerable to systems like fear. And once fear enters a nested loop of thinking, it doesn't need an actual threat. It becomes self-sustaining, a loop that can grow and feed inside your imagination. This is where catastrophizing comes from, where panic attacks come from, where phobias or the feeling of something being haunted comes from. But what's crazy is that it's also where the enjoyment of fear comes from, allowing us to experience fear without being in any real danger. So while being the creator of abstract fears, it also changed the nature of fear, which is—
Yeah, dude, if you don't have we're the only species that can enjoy fear because you're capable. I mean, this is like a no shit, but I've never really thought about it like that, where we're able to enjoy fear because we're consciously able to look inside and recognize that that is not actually going to hurt us. So we're able to actually pick apart the emotion of fear and look at it and enjoy it versus it always being an imminent threat. And like children can't do that. I'm not talking about kids that are like 10. I'm talking about like 3-year-olds, 4-year-olds. Like any level of fear is death fear, or any other animal, any level of fear is death fear.
Important because it means fear is getting stronger, and it's getting stronger.
Would you like to have the ability to never feel fear again? No. I think feeling fear makes you feel alive. If you were unable to be afraid of anything, it would be freeing momentarily, and then I think it would lead to like depression pretty quickly. Like having no fear would be like almost no feeling, because you wouldn't have that duality anymore. You would still be able to like feel excited and happy, but I think eventually nothing would excite you because you're not afraid of, like, I don't know. An example would be like roller coasters. You're not afraid of roller coasters. Well, you might be. I'm not afraid of roller coasters, but I enjoy roller coasters. I'm not scared when I get on them. I just have fun. But if I didn't feel fear, I don't think I would ever have adrenaline. And so any thrill activity would suck. Like, they would be boring. Any activity, like, do you think you would still have adrenaline? Like, do you ever get adrenaline playing a video game? Like a really close overtime Marvel Rivals match or Valorant or something. Like, do you think that would dissipate? If you didn't feel fear, do you think you would still feel adrenaline? Maybe? I don't know. Not as strong. You would maybe feel it, but not in the way, because isn't adrenaline just directly rooted from fear?
Because it doesn't need you.
Because I'm pretty sure adrenaline is just from fear. Like, that is the only reason it exists in your body, is like a fight or flight response. You would never have a fight or flight response. If you don't have fear, you don't have fight or flight. You don't have adrenaline. You don't have excitement. You have nothing. Erickson for the 3. Is that why that fucking rock climber makes himself do that shit, so he feels something? My God. Because he doesn't have the regular fear response that regular people do. So he does extreme things to feel like regular ass emotions. Holy shit. Like cave diving? Yeah. That wouldn't even excite you.
Society.
Up until this point, we focused on how fear shaped us, which was necessary because for most of human history, it was shaping us. But the thing about humans is, we can influence things too, and when we do, that new version can influence us back. This is the essence of memetics, and fear is no exception. So when humans started creating things, we started influencing fear, shaping it in the ways that were most beneficial to us. However, in doing so, we also made fear self-replicating, something that doesn't need people, can spread between them, and can last generations. As far as I know, two reoccurring narratives capture this perfectly: the endless quest and the temptation of forbidden knowledge. In the first one, stories like Sisyphus or the Flying Dutchman are essentially fears about unavoidable situations. In them, a defined individual cheats fate, gets punished, and then ends up suffering eternally. The original fear that inspired this theme was probably some form of helplessness, but after changing through generations of countless retellings, it spread into other areas, shaping morality, how we understand things, persevere, and so much more. In the second pattern,
that is a full telling of anthropology and how societies throughout time build and create their own myths and realities to explain the things that are unexplainable in their day and time.
It's like Pandora's box or the tale of the bamboo cutter likely stems from a fear of what isn't immediately visible, rooted in our fear of darkness. In them, there's something forbidden, curiosity tempts someone into interacting with it, and their interaction triggers consequences. Over generations, we turn that fear, the fear rooted in darkness, into a fear of human progress, which even now continues to grow, shape, and be shaped by us. So to answer the question, fear is getting stronger, and it will always get stronger, because as we change, it does too. Thanks for watching.
I really do want to look at that graph real quick again. 1 to 4, you have like no level of fear. Why do you think it peaks at 40 to 44? Because you're afraid your kids are going to die? Or is it like a midlife crisis type thing? It basically heightens out fully in like high school. I feel like that's got to be wrong. I was scared of everything when I was 10. Does anybody else relate to that? I feel like maybe the reason that it scales is because when you're 10, you're afraid of like level 1, level 2 things. But when you're like 40, you're afraid of everything. Like every type of fear. Like you don't really have like full-blown anxiety when you're 10, but that really kicks in when you're like, 15 to 24. You're like in the midst of being like, oh my God, everything is piling on top of me. I don't know what I need to do. What's my purpose? Okay. Next video.